felt more like medieval France when it happened. But you know,
I had one in France. I have one in France too.
But I just couldn't believe how instantaneously that fear was gone. And it was right after. So yeah, I went to a colleague and friend of mine, because if you do it yourself, you can do it, but you can't go that deep.
I agree.
By yourself. I mean, it helps to have somebody guide you through it. But even in a light hypnotic state, you can resolve a lot of things. So it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be completely put out. I actually prefer with my clients when they're somewhat conscious, because that way they know what's going on. You know, you're aware of it more. It's not like you wake up from a deep sleep and say, oh, well, that was a weird dream, but you kind of go through it. And I studied with Michael Newton, who did the
you did?
regression.
Oh,
yeah.
Now, I'm jealous. I've been wanting to do that. He doesn't do it anymore. So did you study with him directly, Dr.
Yes. Yeah.
No, he just retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said after 40 years I'm not teaching anymore. So, but he had taught like thousands and thousands of people over 40 years.
Yeah, and he had this endless long waiting list of clients. But I was kind of fascinated by that. To me, that was really interesting, to get people to hypnotize them into where they set up this next lifetime. And
he's dead.
So
did he die?
The whole.
Yeah, September 2016.
I think he did.
Yeah, he died in 2016.
What year?
2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
he retired, and then
September 22nd. Yeah. Go ahead.
After he retired, he completely went off the public eye. But it was very fun learning that from him, and I've used that with clients, and it's been. I love to do past life regressions. Purely selfish thought. It's always an interesting kind of story. So
tell us, when you do that life, he has a special life between lives type of hypnosis where he takes you deeper and deeper, into the theta state, and so you go really, really deep, and then you're able to go to where you went between lives. And since you studied with him, I've just read a couple books, but apparently we have a common theme no matter where we're from. Say we could be, from Europe or from China. It doesn't matter where you're from. We're met by a guide. Every person has their own individual guide. Sometimes we go through to our family, but sometimes we go to the council. Why don't you tell the sequence of it? I know there was a common sequence, but then you eventually get to the point, you go like to group therapy with your soul family that you know each other, and then there's surrounding groups, so there's like about 10 to 30 people in your immediate soul family, but then there's you can chart it, it's like circles around, and those are the background characters or people that come in and out of your lives. It might be your boss, or whatever. If you have 20 children, they might not all be in your direct soul family, but they're in this auxiliary circle. Anyway, go ahead and tell us from your perspective about the Michael Newton Institute information.
Well, the Michael Newton sessions, they took 3-some hours. The ones that he did with people to go really into depth into that. I did not do that with my clients. And then he categorized. I mean, he's had thousands of people that he did that with, and he categorized them, and a certain group of people would hear music, and a certain group of people would meet with their counsel, and a certain group would just return to their soul family. And so I've taken his classes, but I never had a session with him.
Oh, okay.
But
now, how did you take his classes? Were they in person in those days?
Yeah, he used to teach. When I got my hypnotherapy certification, he was a guest teacher, and I definitely signed up for that one. But in my own practice, I thought it's really incredible when you enter that through a past life. So you regress somebody into their past life, and then you go to the end of that life. And then when they leave that life, they go into that soul state. And I love doing that because to me it was just really interesting what people would see there. Just incredible. And
what are some of the things that people reported to you?
Well, one thing that really stuck or came to mind was I had several musicians for a while that were coming, and some of them heard very different kind of music, and it really they went back to their composing afterwards to utilize that, what they heard in the in-between life as music. And what else did I have? I had some people that in the first stage of that they weren't aware of the fact that they died, and that's something that's always somewhat fascinated me, that a lot of people die without being conscious of it. So they kind of remain in that moment of right before they died. And so part of their energy is stuck there, which is then turns them into earthbound spirits, or if they do eventually move on, they come back and still deal with that. A lot of, very fear of certain things, like phobias can come from that, like mine, about breaking my neck and being stuck there. And when I went through the whole thing again, it just let go, because I went from there to everything was peaceful, everything was light and beautiful, and I was just floating, and I'm like, oh, it's like not a bad thing breaking your neck. It was actually pleasant.
So that's an interesting thought. So some people who die and don't know that they died, they're kind of stuck. They get stuck in, we call it the bardo. But I hope that's not everybody. I mean, what if you're like, sitting in your house and a bomb hits your house, or a meteor hits your house, or something, or a gas explosion? Are those people stuck because they blow up and they didn't know that they're dead? Or is there a way for them to come out of it and realize, oh, I'm dead?
Well, I think that and this is purely my personal opinion, I think the deeper your attachments are, the more you get stuck. And I also believe that your attachments are what forms the scenario for the next lifetime. So the less attachments you have at the moment of death, the more freely you move across that doorstep. But if it happens at a moment where you think like, oh, I haven't finished this, or I haven't seen this person, or I must tell this, then you get stuck in that attachment, or a big part of your energy gets stuck in that particular attachment, and then you try to come right back because you need to fulfill whatever that was. So to get that unstuck, so people can actually move on and move on more freely. But ultimately, it's all about the attachments. The less you have, the better.
We had 3 people that were killed in a flood. They tried to cross the road during a flash flood, and there were people on both sides saying, don't try it. It's too high, and they tried it anyway, and it ended up catching their vehicle and washing it down the stream, and then they hit a giant rock, and it flipped the Jeep, and they broke their necks and their skulls, and then they were washed out to sea. So the man was the co-owner of the property at the time. We were called Hui partners here, and when I first moved here, the land was co-owned by this other guy and his wife and 2 children. And so we all tried to rescue them. We had a workshop going here. We did workshops too, and it was a Tantra workshop. And everybody grabbed, their stuff, and they went out and tried to find him. And they went up and down the stream, and nobody could find him. And then at 9 p.m., the evening tide brought him in. There were 3 of them, 2 women and a man. But the students that were here, they were staying here. There was about half a dozen that were staying here. The rest were down in hotels. And the one guy said, I was starting to fall asleep, and his name was Jim, the guy who died. Jim came over to me, and he kind of sat down at the foot of my bed, and so this guy was talking to him, and he said, I had to convince him that he was dead. But after talking to him, he said, that must be it. I am dead. So he kind of, he hung around for 2 or 3 years, and so he would come, and after all the students left, he would come and he would sit on my bed, but he would sit on my husband's feet. But of course, it was a ghost, and my husband couldn't feel it. But I would get up to go to the bathroom, and I'd see something, sitting on his feet, and at first I didn't pay attention. Then the one time I just got curious, and I went out in my astral form, and there he was. So I don't know how I do this. I just did it. So I started working with him because he was really distraught that he left his wife and his 2 sons. They weren't grown yet. They were teenage boys, and they really needed their father, and they were devastated. And then to go to the end of the story. So then he was coming on a regular basis, and I said, I can't do this every night. I've got to sleep, and, because I have a life I'm living. So I would meet him a couple times a week and to see how he was doing. He wasn't doing well. But then his son did, suicide by motorcycle. He got drunk. He was driving really fast, and he's driving down Kihei, and he hit some tourist head-on and tipped over the vehicle. I guess that was traumatic for them. Go to Maui for your dream vacation, and some guy hits you with his motorcycle and kills himself. But as soon as that happened, Jim stopped coming. So what happened was the son came and got him, and they both went on to the other side together. So, and we were going, wow, they're gone. They're both gone. Because the kid was born on this property, had grown up here. So anyway, that's kind of what happened to me. Anybody else have anything to share on that line?
Yeah, my one of my teachers a long time ago, Jerry Gross, he used to make it his thing to go out every night and help somebody and tell them, hey, you're dead, move on. And we all,
wow.
There are TV shows about that now. But he said, just if you go through, his theory was that people are so drugged now, like in hospitals when they die, we drug them so much that they don't actually know when death happens themselves.
Right. Uh-huh.
So he talked about that a lot. So he said, hospitals are just so crowded with people that just don't know that they've actually, left this body. Uh-huh. And so he would go at night when his wife went to sleep, he would go and leave his body and go into the hospitals and help all these people.
Wow, that's pretty nice for him.
Yeah, I remember Janet, I told you had me working. Janet, in my dreams, Janet's one of my people from past lives. And Johanna, I don't know if you'll think I'm nuts or not, probably be open-minded to it, but lucid dream, I have lucid dreams in other places and planets, so sometimes I don't know which dimension I'm in. I come back and go, wow, but I was looking for Janet in this hospital, but she had got me there, so I think she's one of my guides to the other planets because I tell her she's always trying to save everybody. But I was working all night, and these people and these large, huge steps, and I remember going, how am I supposed to push these people up these steps, because they were like different. It was in the future, I think, because they were moving different towers, different hospitals. I had people going down ramps, And then somebody